Hey there, Jordan Chariton. I am back. Let me know if you could see me, if you could hear me, and how it's looking. I just tried a YouTube before this, but wasn't looking so swell. I'll wait a few seconds to get a few people up. It is almost 5 o'clock on the East Coast. Oh, okay. It does look, the quality's definitely better, so I guess it was a Wi-Fi issue. As I was saying on my last live stream, I've just joined something called Steemit. It's steemit.com. That's steemit.com, S-T-E-E-M-I-T. Steemit.com/@Jordan Chariton. You have to put the @ symbol. Definitely go check it out. Sign up yourself so you could follow me there. It is basically a new blogging platform that you could post independent journalists. Other people can post videos, articles, what have you. And there is no censorship. Unfortunately, a lot of platforms, including the one I'm on now, has been censoring journalists and others for content that they don't like. Which is very dangerous in society. So I've decided to go to Steemit. How it works, you post video, articles, and you could actually make money each post in digital currency, I guess, based on how many people watch or read. So it's cool. Lee Camp is on there. He's been pushing people to sign up. So definitely go sign up. I think it takes a little while to get approved, and then you could follow Lee, myself, again, steemit.com/@Jordan Chariton. Also go check out jordanchariton.com. We're trying to build up the email list as we gear up for launching a new people-powered media network. We want to have your emails so we could get in contact with you directly, as opposed to being dependent on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and all the rest. We want to have a one-way communication with you. We will not surveil you. We will not send you 25 emails a week. All we want is your email and info, so you know exclusively and first when we have announcements to make and when new things are coming out. So definitely check that out and press the share button so we can get this out. Funny things have been happening on YouTube this week. Strangely enough, after coming out the first 2 weeks on YouTube, youtube.com/Jordan Chariton reports, after coming out pretty strong, over 7,000 subscribers, all of a sudden, and the videos were getting anywhere between 1,000 to like 2,500 views, which is pretty good for that level of subscribers. All of a sudden, a lot less views on videos. All of a sudden, a lot less views on live stream. So either suddenly I've become unpopular, or something's going on the YouTube. Just saying. A lot of algorithm changes on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and a lot of strange things happening where, you know, some weeks you're doing gangbusters, you're getting a lot of retweets, or you're getting a lot of consistent views on YouTube, and then all of a sudden, you know, nothing. So, go figure. Not making any accusations, but just reporting what's going on. But also, if you haven't seen, I have great videos up right now on the channel. I did an interview with 2 women that are very active in fighting the opioid epidemic in Indiana. Really powerful interview. They shared their personal experiences. Also did an interview with an environmental activist in East Chicago. His name's Thomas Frank. Go check that out. That part 1 of that is up. I give you an update on what's going on in East Chicago. Shocker. The EPA is allowing corporate contaminator DuPont, which has been responsible for poisoning the water of pretty much every state now. They had to set over $681 million last year. They are being allowed to now profit first off of selling their contaminated factory in East Chicago, rather than focusing first and foremost on cleaning it up and public health. Only in America does a corporation pollute, contaminate, cause cancer, and then they're allowed to make a big profit. That's more than the cost of cleanup. Unbelievable, the society we live in. But again, share this video, and also don't forget Chapter 5 of corporate con job, my book, now available. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. And some of you have said you don't like Patreon and want to support me. You could also support me at PayPal. That's paypal.me/Jordan Chariton. Now, are you surprised that Democrats are helping banks discriminate? Are you surprised that 12 Democrats want to help banks hide racial discrimination in mortgages? I wish I could say I'm reporting something breaking or I'm reporting something truly stunning, but I am not. I am not. This is not surprising, and this is why I continue to knock the corporate Democrats. This is why I continue to call them out, and Jimmy calls them out, and others call them out, because they're not that much different than Republicans. They're not that much different than Republicans. How's that for whoever just told me it was a tough angle? 12 Democrats. I'll read it to you. HuffPost. Tim Kaine isn't shy about his work as a fair housing lawyer. When he ran as the Democratic Party's vice presidential nominee in 2016, the Virginia senator routinely touted his past pro bono efforts to help low-income families deal with shady landlords and racist lenders. Combined with his affable dork dad delivery, I don't know about that, Kaine helped shore up Hillary Clinton's credibility on an ambitious anti-discrimination agenda. And it didn't sound like empty politician talk. Kaine had done the work. So Tim Kaine, who would have been our vice president if Hillary Clinton had won the presidency, he sounds like a swell guy, right? He still feels a connection with civil rights attorneys. Quote, in representing people who are getting ripped off or who don't have anybody else to stand up for them or who don't even know the questions to ask or where to turn to help, you are the hero. Kaine told a Washington gathering of the nonprofit National Consumer Law Center in November. All right, sounds pretty good so far. And on Monday, the Senate will hold a key vote on Kaine-sponsored bill that deliberately undermines the government's ability to enforce laws against racial discrimination in the housing market. So Tim Kaine said in November, in representing people who are getting ripped off or who don't have anybody else to stand up for them or who don't even know the questions to ask or where to turn for help, you are the hero. Fast forward to March 2018, and on Monday, the Senate will hold a key vote on a Kaine-sponsored bill that deliberately undermines the government's ability to enforce laws against racial discrimination in the housing market. And press the share button so we can get this out to more people. The legislation would block the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau from collecting key data showing when and where families of colors are being overcharged for home loans or steered into predatory products. It's just one small provision in a broad financial deregulation package, which is almost certain to clear both chambers of Congress and receive President Donald Trump's signature. Last week, 17 members of the Senate Democratic Caucus voted to advance the bill. So, I believe it was 16 Democrats last week, are voting with the Republicans to push forward this deregulation of the big banks. I've done videos on that. And now there's an effort to chip away at rules that protect minorities from being discriminated against in mortgages. And Tim Kaine is sponsoring that bill. How is that for Stronger Together? The effort to chip away at anti-discrimination enforcement has largely gone overlooked this year, as banking watchdogs focus their criticism on the legislation's rollback of tougher rules against risk-taking at megabanks that were implemented in response to the 2008 financial crash. Both foreign financial conglomerates and big American regional lenders would enjoy lighter federal supervision if the bill passes. To its opponents, the bill represents a contorted statement of values, prioritizing a short-term bank profits over consumer protection and financial stability. Quote, "This is a bad bill," Elizabeth Warren told the Huffington Post. No Democrat and no Republican should support it. The federal government has been collecting basic data on mortgage discrimination since 1975, tallying by race which families receive loans and which are denied. Banks have always made a habit of turning down mortgages in black neighborhoods, a practice known as redefining that is very much alive and well. But the housing bubble and subsequent foreclosures laid bare an ugly trend. Lenders had also been targeting minority families with subprime mortgages and other predatory loans instead of simply denying mortgages outright. The 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law sought to address this by setting tougher predatory lending rules and by requiring banks to turn over a broader swath of information to the newly created Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. In addition to basic facts about loan approval or denial, lenders had to report a borrower's age and credit score, as well as the property value of the home being purchased, the interest rate, loan terms, and other pricing failures of each mortgage. All this information can be used to help determine if families of color are being ripped off or disproportionately pushed into predatory loans. The CFB looks through the data for violations or red flags and publishes it online so consumer groups can do their own research. So, on what planet is deregulating this so that there's less transparency and less data and less facts to make it known when minorities are being discriminated against, which, by the way, the 2008 financial crash, African Americans were disproportionately basically cheated and lied to in those mortgages. You know what planet? The same planet that in Tim Kaine's career, he's accepted $921,903 from Wall Street. $921,903 from Wall Street, according to OpenSecrets.org. So this is the problem. This is the problem with the Democratic Party. I am all for. I would if Nancy Pelosi came out tomorrow and was for Medicare for all, free public college, ending private prisons, regulating Wall Street tightly, regulating pharmaceutical companies tightly, ending the subsidies, and she actually followed up with proposals, I'd be for Nancy Pelosi. Same thing goes for Tim Kaine, Cory Booker, and the rest. If they walked the walk instead of talking, as Donald Trump likes to say, all they do is talk. All they do is talk. He's right, even though all he does is talk. But you got Tim Kaine, who went around on the campaign trail, placating Latinos, speaking in Spanish at rallies, who went along with Hillary Clinton saying he's going to tell Wall Street to cut it out. Cut it out, Wall Street. But the truth is, the Democratic Party is just as corrupt when it comes to Wall Street, big banks, deregulation. 10 years after deregulation crashed the global economy, which I'm sure many of you are still feeling the impacts. If you lost your job, or you lost your home, or your 401k got cut in half, they're doing it again. They're doing it again. And Tim Kaine, who has lauded himself as a fair housing attorney, is sponsoring a bill to deregulate basically transparency when minorities are being discriminated against. Come a long way from the days of being a fair housing attorney. How about that, Senator Kaine? And let me check, is Tim Kaine up for re-election this year? I believe he is in Virginia. Tim Kaine, re-election, 2018. Yep. Tim Kaine is up for a second term in the great state of Virginia. And I doubt the local media in Virginia is going to report on Tim Kaine pushing deregulation so that it screws minorities, because what do they care? The local media, the national media, they're in the same business with the banks. Half of them are sponsored by banks. Morning Joe, sponsored by Bank of America. Political Playbook, which sends out an email every morning, brought to you by JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley. I mean, at least they don't hide it, right? And by the way, this isn't some like hypothetical thing that banks possibly discriminate against minorities. Headline, February 27th, Wells Fargo accused of preying on black Latino homebuyers in California. If you have a Wells Fargo account, they're screwing minorities. Wells Fargo discriminated against black and Latino homebuyers in Sacramento, California by pushing them into more expensive mortgages than white borrowers, according to a federal lawsuit that cites former employees. The city of Sacramento accused Wells Fargo of, quote, long-standing pattern and practice of illegal lending in minority and low-income communities that reduced home values, limited property tax revenues, and drove up foreclosures. Quote, Wells Fargo discriminatory lending practices place vulnerable, undeserved borrowers in loans they cannot afford, said the lawsuit. The city said that four anonymous former mortgage employees at Wells Fargo confirmed that the bank, quote, intentionally steered minority borrowers into higher-cost loans because of their race or ethnicity. Black Wells Fargo borrowers in Sacramento with credit scores above 660 are 2.8 times more likely to receive a high-cost or high-risk loan than than comparable white borrowers, the lawsuit said. Latino borrowers were 1.8 times more likely, the suit said. So maybe Tim Kaine, next time he's running for re-election, or maybe he's going to run for president, who knows, he could speak in Spanish and tell them that he's helping to screw them. And I want to be clear, it's not like Republicans are better than Tim Kaine. They're doing the same stuff. I'm not excusing the Republicans. But the Republicans aren't the ones pretending to be the party of the people. I mean, does Paul Ryan say anything that makes it sound like he give a damn about you? Does Mitch McConnell or his neck say anything that makes you think they're for you? We have to call out the Democrats because they're the ones that are the quote-unquote opposition party. This is not an opposition party. This is a party that basically carries the Republicans over the line needed, the vote count needed, to pass discriminatory, destructive policies. Thanks for nothing, Schumer. You're right. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. And you can't expect the corporate media to report on it. Frankly, I'm not seeing enough about this in independent media. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. Tim Kaine has taken nearly $1 million. Nearly $1 million in 5 years. He's only been a senator since 2013. He's taken $921,903 from Wall Street. And by the way, lawyers and law firms, he's taken $1,743,242 from lawyers and law firms. Well, guess what? A lot of those lawyers and law firms are financial lawyers. Financial services lawyers that represent, wait for it, big banks. It's disgusting, if you ask me. Disgusting. You want to know? You want Tim Kaine to know what you think of that? Well, they won't give you his number, but I will. Call his office in Washington, D.C. 202-224-4024. That's 202-224-4024. I'm just giving you the information. That's my job. Give you the information. If you want to do something, you do it. 202-224-4024. And by the way, what he's doing is not going to affect me disproportionately. I'm a white guy. This is targeted towards minorities. This is targeted to people that don't have, that in many cases do not have the same protections or opportunity. From one awful story to, I think, a perfect example of why we need a media revolution. And remember, part of that media revolution is you. Right now, go to my website, jordanchariton.com. Put in your email, jordanchariton.com. Right now, go to steemit.com, STEEMIT.com. Sign up and then follow me. Steemit.com/@JordanChariton. Thank you for telling me I look poor. I am in my parents' kitchen, so maybe you're right. So, Bloomberg.com. Bloomberg.com. I wouldn't say they're like the fighters for the people. So, they have a headline. Gains in minimum wage will squeeze upper middle class. The second headline. Wages are rising more quickly for restaurant and daycare workers than for the people who pay them. Uh-oh. No, I'm not saying uh-oh. That's in the headline. I'm not kidding. Wages are rising more quickly for restaurant and daycare workers than for people who pay them. Uh-oh. So basically the premise of the article is raising wages for restaurant workers and daycare workers are going to hurt the upper middle class. And by the way, when they say the upper middle class, what that means is wealthy people. When you are upper middle class, you might not be a millionaire, you might not be a billionaire, but you're doing okay, upper middle class. If you're upper middle class in New Mexico, you're doing way better than upper middle class, say, in New York. But if you're upper middle class in New York, you're not like, that's not living paycheck to paycheck. Share this video. Let's get it out to more people. So why is more money for blue-collar workers and restaurant workers a bad thing? Let's see what Bloomberg says. Right now, the two biggest winners in the labor market are minimum wage employees whose pay is rising with government mandates and raises from large corporations, and blue-collar workers. As Friday's job report makes clear, this is bad news for upper middle class workers, aka wealthy people, who rely on the products and services provided by these workers, and whose pay isn't rising as quickly. It's also a reversal of some of the income inequality trends we've witnessed over the past several decades. Okay. States and cities across the country are ratcheting up their minimum wages. California's minimum wage for large employers, for instance, increased to $11 per hour on January 1st from $10.50, and will increase by $1 per hour every year until it reaches $15 per hour in 2022. I don't even think that's enough, that we're systematically raising it every year till 2022. But anyway, perhaps not coincidentally, Walmart Inc. recently announced that it was increasing its minimum wage to $11 per hour after kicking off this trend back in 2015. Target Corporation, with a goal of raising its minimum wage to $15 per hour, announced last week that it was raising its minimum wage to $12 per hour. Every industry and business that relies on low-wage employees will find itself forced to wage raises to compete with employers like Walmart and Target to attract or retain workers. I want to make something clear also. Walmart isn't raising the minimum wage out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing it because Trump's tax plan has given companies like Walmart gigantic isn't the word, an otherworldly corporate welfare tax cut. So the very small increase that Walmart's giving is like a penny in the bucket compared to the tax cuts they are getting, along with many other companies. And the one-time bonuses By the way, you get a $1,000 bonus. How much is that after taxes? Are a penny to most of these corporations compared to the goodies and tax cuts they're getting. This goes on. Blue-collar workers are the other group benefiting, both in job creation and wage growth. Goods-producing jobs, which include construction, manufacturing, and mining, have increased by 536,000 over the past year, growth as fast as we've seen in the past 30 years. Additionally, while measures of average hourly earnings for all workers remains around 2.5%, growth for goods-producing workers is spiking, with wages up 3.5% over the past year. We haven't seen blue-collar wage growth outpace overall wage growth like this on a sustained basis since the early 1980s. And why you haven't seen that since the early 1980s is because in the early 1980s, there was a man named Ronald Reagan who attacked labor unions, who pushed through deregulation, who pushed through corporate-written trade deals that sent most of the manufacturing jobs to China and Mexico, and then Bill Clinton took that and put it on steroids with NAFTA. Bloomberg writes, these trends are to be celebrated. But, there's always a but, these trends are to be celebrated, but they end up being a burden on one group of workers in particular, the upper middle class, also known as wealthy people. These workers have been some of the biggest winners in the American economy over the past 30 years. I wouldn't call it the American economy, I would call it the American heist. The American heist. Because the money was taken from the middle class, or whatever's left of it, and given to the upper middle class, or the wealthy. Because it's not only the top 1%, it's been the top 10% that the money has funneled to. Has Jordan responded anywhere on the TYT allegations? Yes, I have. Go check it out. I did previous videos addressing that. I think it's in the first video on this YouTube channel. Yes, I responded. It's not true. I go forward. So these workers have been some of the biggest winners in the American economy over the past 30 years, but the tight labor market could begin to change that. Rising wages for construction workers raise the cost of housing. And these white-collar workers tend to be clustered in metro areas that have already have high housing costs. Rising costs for minimum wage workers means the cost of many labor-intensive services consumed by the upper middle class, daycare, housekeeping, and dining out, are rising and will continue to do so. Also, employers forced to devote more money to their lowest paid workers. Oh, you poor corporations. You're forced to maybe instead of, if you're Walmart, maybe instead of taking, several billion in profit, you take 500 million in profit so that your workers could eat and drink. Also, employers forced to devote more money to their lowest paid workers may look for cuts elsewhere in their workforce. When Walmart announced its higher minimum wage, it also announced cutting thousands of store management roles. The net effect of all this means that some of the income inequality trends observed over the past several decades are reversing, potentially narrowing the gap between the top 25% of earners and the bottom 75%. It changes the math of labor market migration, too. For upper middle class workers in a world where low wage and blue collar workers are seeing the fastest growth, the only play might be to move somewhere cheaper. I mean, there's so many things to address in this article. And I'm not picking on Bloomberg because this is every corporate outlet. Every corporate outlet is more focused on the upper middle class, also known as the wealthy, than the middle class and the poor. And that's part of why the media was so stunned that an oaf, a total schmuck, con man like Trump was able to win the presidency because he spoke to these blue-collar workers. He might have been lying to them, but he still spoke to them. Hillary Clinton sure didn't. So, first of all, I just want to make a point because it's so important. Corporate media, when's the last time you saw an article headline, wages are rising more quickly for upper middle class workers, Have you seen any articles like that that points out the income inequality where money's funneling to the top 1%, the top 10%, and how that's a bad thing? And uh-oh, I don't. But on the merits, what this piece is missing. So what do you think happens? What do you think happens when daycare workers, restaurant workers, blue-collar workers get increases in money? Get increases in hourly wage, salaries, whatever. What do you think happens? Do you think they hide it under their pillow? Do you think they go off to the casino? Einstein said it. They spend it! So, if some things are going up in cost, housing, what do they say is going up in cost? As a result, daycare, housekeeping, and dining out are rising and will continue doing so. Well, go figure. If the daycare workers and the blue-collar workers have more money in their pocket, maybe they could do things like start paying off their debt. Maybe they could do things like start going to the restaurants. Maybe they could do things like send their kids to daycare, which many poor people, and if you want to call them working poor people, cannot even afford daycare for their kids. So this article pities the upper middle class, also known as the wealthy, and talks about all the costs that are going to go up as a result of the blue-collar worker or the daycare worker or the restaurant worker getting a deserved increase. As we've seen on the charts, productivity has skyrocketed over the last 3 decades, and wages have stayed stagnant for us peasants. But this article doesn't put in that inconvenient fact that if you're giving them more money, then they have more money to spend, and they could afford maybe slightly higher housing prices or things like that. And the other thing is also this. When do we as a society say, no, 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 no. There has to be caps on how high the housing market can charge for houses. There has to be caps on if Walmart gives workers a bonus, they can't then lay off hundreds of thousands of workers. This government allows its corporations to do whatever the hell they want. Wall Street to do whatever the hell they want. Real estate to do whatever the hell they want. So in one breath, you get through merit and more equal pay, you're giving blue-collar workers a raise, daycare workers, restaurant workers, but then you're allowing, as a result, because poor Walmart makes just a little less money, or real estate industry makes just a little bit less money, you let them skyrocket their prices. Well, maybe we need to make a new movie where when Gordon Gekko said greed is good, maybe greed isn't as good. Maybe greedy mofos can still be very wealthy, yet take a little bit less. But there's no discussion about that. Maybe we need to be talking about things that other countries are starting to talk about and doing, like universal basic income. Universal basic income. So that if these greedy companies raise their prices in response to their workers being paid like humans, then maybe not only do the workers get paid what they should get paid, but there's also universal basic income. So there's a little extra money as a right. I'm not saying give universal basic income to people that refuse to work if they're able-bodied. I'm not saying give universal basic income to people who are just cheating the system and doing nothing. But give me a break with articles about, oh, well, you know, it's a good thing that the blue-collar worker and the daycare worker and the restaurant worker are getting a raise, but it's really going to squeeze those wealthy people. Good. Good. And I'm not someone who just says, yeah, tax the rich, and screw them. No, many wealthy people Many wealthy people worked hard for it, and I don't think they should take all their earnings. I think it was a little much under like Eisenhower when it was 90%. That's not realistic. But the bottom line is you're getting wealthy because of the country you live in, because of the opportunity it allows you. Frankly, because there's very little regulation so that you could then cheat. So you should have to pay back some of that money to that government that gave you the opportunity, which people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, I got my issues with them on certain things, they make that argument too. So I don't have any sympathy for upper middle class people that have to, you know, oh, they're making less money, or as a result of paying the working poor more money, you know, they don't have to raise prices. They're doing it because they're greedy. They're still going to make profit. McDonald's still going to make out like gangbusters if they paid all their workers $15 an hour. Same thing with Walmart. Same thing with Target. Same thing with Burger King. They'd still make obscenely large amounts in profit. But the problem is this country and its laws cater towards greed. Period. Period. All right, we're up to 132 people watching. Can we get to a 150? 36 minutes in. Moving on to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks were in the news today. I'm going to get to that story, which is involved with Roger Stone. But I think there's something else interesting that has happened with Julian Assange recently. I didn't see it in many places. And by the way, you don't have to, some progressives don't like WikiLeaks. Some progressives love WikiLeaks. You know, I'm pro WikiLeaks. I don't love everything, especially its communication with some Trump people. But overall, I think they've done a lot more good than bad. So, headline, Obama administration to blame for WikiLeaks releases, Assange says. This was from the other day. Julian Assange on Friday credited the Obama administration for putting him in place to publish sensitive documents through his WikiLeaks website, including Democratic emails released during the 2016 presidential race. Mr. Assange made the remarks on Twitter in response to a tweet last month by former Attorney General Eric Holder. The former U.S. Attorney General in office when the Justice Department initiated its investigation of WikiLeaks following publications of classified U.S. diplomatic cables and military documents in 2010. As we know, Hillary Clinton said, let's kill him. Let's kill Assange. And later said, I was joking, of course. Quote, Russian threat to our upcoming This is from Assange. Oh, no, excuse me. This is from Holder. Eric Holder said, quote, Russian threat to our upcoming elections. Do something. Do anything. Impose sanctions overwhelmingly approved by even this dysfunctional Congress. Are you simply unfit without the necessary nerve, or do they have something on you? We were attacked, Mr. Holder tweeted February 20th. So Assange responded, attacked? By what? The truth? Attacked by what? The truth? And then he went on to say, it's entirely your fault, Eric. Thanks to your unconstitutional grand jury against WikiLeaks, you left me with nothing to do but 24/7. Nothing to do but work 24/7 in harsh conditions for years. And I'm good, very good at my job. So basically, WikiLeaks is saying, since the United States government has essentially, I mean, let's not make any mistake, the charges against Assange, he was charged, I believe, with sexual assault. The charges against him were dropped. I believe May of 2017, so almost a year ago, the charges were dropped by Sweden. So the only real reason that he's still in that Ecuador embassy is because if he leaves, I think there's a warrant out for his arrest for not being at a bail hearing, I believe. But if he steps out of that embassy, he's going to be arrested, and then he's probably going to be extradited to the U.S. because Eric Holder and the United States government under Obama, and I guess Trump too, have been working to keep him locked up, to keep him in that embassy, to basically make him go crazy or make sure his health deteriorates. I mean, I would go crazy if I was kept in a building for years and years and years. Small confines, you get no natural light, natural. You don't have to agree or disagree with WikiLeaks to think that's messed up. There are no criminal charges against Julian Assange. None. There's no criminal charges. I'm not commenting on his guilt or innocence because I don't know. I am. Excuse me. I believe the women also backtracked on the accusation. I'm not positive, but that's what I believe. But there's no charges against him. Yet he's holed up in an embassy. And the corporate media, Eric Holder, say Julian Assange should be, he's not a real, WikiLeaks is not a real entity. And they should be brought to justice. Well, you basically brought this on yourself, Assange is saying, because you left me here to do nothing but work 24/7. I can't go out. I can't meet with friends. I can't date, whatever. It's devoted to a bail issue in the UK. Thank you, Harlan. So I thought that was very interesting, and I think Assange is right. He is damn good at what he does. The people around him are damn good at what he does. And he's basically calling out Eric Holder on nonsense. On absolute nonsense. But there's another thing with Assange. So this morning, the Washington Post reported that, I love this because it's always an unnamed source. All our reporting, all our truth is always an unnamed official. And sometimes in journalism, some of the best stories in American history were unnamed officials. I'm not saying unnamed sourcing or not on the record reporting is bad in all cases, but pretty much 95% of the Russia investigation reporting or the hacking or all this stuff has been through unnamed officials, which let me name them for you. CIA officials. And we all know the Washington Post is in business with the CIA. The Washington Post, did you know that Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, has like a $600 million contract with the CIA? I think something to do with Kindles, I believe. Jimmy Dore has done a lot on this. So the Washington Post owner has a $600 million contract with the CIA. And what do you know? The Washington Post has a lot of stories from unnamed officials, which are coming from the CIA. And as we know, the CIA has lied in all of American history. That's all they do. They're liars. They've made stuff up. If you watch Untold History of the United States by Oliver Stone, the CIA has literally created demonstrations out of thin air, like got together rebels and faked like uprisings in countries that they wanted to topple democratically elected leaders. The CIA has forged photos and shown them to leaders. So, Washington Post reports that a confidant of Roger Stone said that Roger Stone told the confidant that he and Julian Assange spoke on the phone in the spring of 2016, well before the DNC emails and the Podesta emails were released. An unnamed source told the Washington Post that Stone had a phone conversation with Assange in the spring of 2016. Ahead of any public knowledge about Democratic email leaks, Stone told the source he had learned WikiLeaks had obtained emails from the Democratic National Committee and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. During the campaign, Stone said in interviews and speeches that he was in touch with WikiLeaks, and he posted tweets in October 2016 that seemingly predicted the Podesta leaks. The Washington Post report suggests that in addition to these public statements, Stone was even more candid in private conversations about ties to WikiLeaks. So, Roger Stone is denying this report. I don't know. How can you verify it? How can you verify that this did happen or that it didn't happen? There's no way of knowing. All we know is that the Washington Post, who basically is in business with the CIA, is reporting that an unnamed confidant said that Roger Stone and Julian Assange spoke on the phone in the spring of 2016, well before these emails were released. I have no idea. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. If it is true, what do they speak about? But one thing I do know is true. So the Atlantic.com reported, I think a few weeks ago, this bombshell that they had obtained private direct messages on Twitter between Roger Stone and WikiLeaks. And most people know that most of WikiLeaks' tweets and private messages is actually Julian Assange himself runs the WikiLeaks account. So this was a bombshell report that they got these screenshots. So in the screenshot, I'm reading it to you, Roger Stone said to the WikiLeaks account privately, "Since I was all over national TV, cable, and print defending WikiLeaks and Assange against the claims that you are Russian agents and debunking the false charges of sexual assault as trumped up BS, you may want to re-examine the strategy of attacking me. Cordially, R," meaning Roger. WikiLeaks responded, "We appreciate that. However, the false claims of association," meaning the false claims Roger Stone is making of association with WikiLeaks, "are being used by the Democrats to undermine the impact of our publications. Don't go there if you don't want us to correct you." So this bombshell, oh my God, that CNN and all these people, reported was like some type of smoking gun, is basically Julian Assange or WikiLeaks, whoever was writing it, saying, stop falsely saying that you have a back channel to us, or we're working together. Again, I'm all for the investigation into Russia. If there's evidence found that Trump's campaign, working with the Russian government, hacked Podesta's emails, the DNC emails, then gave them to WikiLeaks, I do think that's a problem. I think it's scandalous. And I do think Trump would be in big, big duty and might be impeached. And I do think that's a problem. I do think that's scandalous. I don't care if you like Hillary Clinton, you don't like Hillary Clinton. I think you know where I stand. If a campaign is working with a foreign government to hack the other campaign and then get it out there through WikiLeaks, I mean, that's borderline treasonous. But there is no evidence of that. I'm sorry that I don't just regurgitate what unnamed CIA officials tell me, although unnamed officials from the CIA or named officials tend not to talk to people like me, if I'm keeping it real. So, honestly, I think this is much to do about nothing. That, the Washington Post, citing an unnamed confidant, says Roger Stone and Assange talked in the spring of 2016 before any emails were released. Well, till I know who that unnamed confidant is or what proof do they have? Do they have phone recordings? Do they have phone records? None of that's in the story. Like, as journalists, you don't just regurgitate what unnamed people tell you. And if they're providing you evidence, then you need to tell your audience and show your audience what is that evidence. That's what I've said. That's what Glenn Greenwald has said. That's what Jimmy Dore has said. Trust me, I'm in my parents' kitchen. Do you really think I'm a Kremlin puppet? Because if I was a Kremlin puppet, I'm not doing it right. Unreal. It's unbelievable. And as the audience goes up, I want to tell the people who are just coming now, go to steemit.com. That's steemit, STEEMIT.com. Sign up. It takes a little bit to get approved. And then you'll follow me, hopefully, at steemit.com/ at Jordan Chariton. Yes, that is the family on the refrigerator. Would you like to see my family on the refrigerator? Or should I keep reporting? I'm doing Steam It. It's a new blogging platform, not censored. Journalists or anyone can post their videos, their articles. You actually can make money per post. Lee Camp is very active on it. It's based on digital currency. I will be I am now on there, and I will be going on there much more, as certain platforms that I won't mention are now censoring me and other independent journalists. So moving on, I want to bring you a story on guns that's very, very local. It's happening in Chicago. It's very, very local, and I think it's showing the sickness of politicians and leaders in this country. It's pretty local, though. So this is from the Chicago Tribune. Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills District 181 Board backs off gun violence resolution, calling it political. Again, Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills District 181 Board backs off gun violence resolution, calling it political. Policy trumps sentiment Monday when the Hinsdale Clarendon Hills Elementary District 181 Board opted to not pursue implementation of a policy regarding school safety and especially gun violence. While the 5 board members at Monday's meeting, Marty Turek and Nathan Lucht, were united in support of school safety against gun violence, the majority felt adopting a resolution specifically addressing gun violence would violate board policy because of its political nature. Quote, "I would like to think this is not a political issue, it's common sense, but it is a political issue," board member Rich Giltner said. Superintendent Don White initially planned to recommend the board consider a resolution related to school safety and guns, but opted to withdraw that recommendation. Quote, "Upon further consideration, I concluded this would put the board in the middle of making public statements on political topics," White said. "This has not been the type of topic that D181 board discussed in the past, and taking a stance on something as political as gun control or gun legislation is not advised." Quote, board member Leslie Gray said she personally supported a resolution aimed at addressing gun violence in schools, but as a board member couldn't support adopting it. Quote, "This particular resolution called for us advocating for legislative action, in particular bills to be passed by Congress and allocation of funds by Congress. To me, that's inherently a political activity." Board President Jennifer Bird said because board policy prohibits taking political stands, there should not be any consideration of a policy addressing gun violence. So, let me get this straight. And by the way, this isn't like specific to this school district 181 in Chicago. So because it's a political topic, you're not going to call for things that are going to make your students safe? Because it's like in your guidelines or your bylaws or something? You're going to tell that to the parents if, God forbid, there's a shootout at your school, in one of those schools or one of those districts? You're going to say, yeah, we had these recommendations and we were going to do X, Y, and Z, but we just didn't do anything because we didn't want to wade into the politics. That is insane. That's insane. Who cares if it's a political topic? And by the way, it's not a political topic. It's a safe protecting your children, which is the #1 responsibility of a teacher. When teachers or educators or leaders in the school are given your children, the first thing before educating them is to make sure they are safe. So you're not going to pass gun violence. I don't know what their particular proposals were, but you're not going to pass gun violence measures because you don't want to be on one side of the issue. This is life and death. Are you not paying attention? to the now, I think, 20 shootings in schools this year. This is not the time to be pontificating about what is or what is not a political issue. Shame on these board members. And by the way, yes, these are politically elected school board members. You're a political officer. But you can't propose policies that are political in nature? Then what is your point? What's the point? Are you there just to like vote on like what art goes on the wall in school? Or what goes into the vending machine? I know this isn't a sexy topic. It's some like obscure district board in Chicago. But this is happening in other places. The cowardice and the stupidity and the insanity of local bureaucrats. It's terrible. Quote, I would like to think this is not a political issue, it's common sense, but it is a political issue, board member Rich Giltner said. Quote, excuse me. Board member Meeta Patel had a different take. Quote, I feel this is not so much a political decision or a discussion, but about the safety of our students. Hello, bingo. Parent Carissa Kapkar agreed. Quote, I do not consider this to be a political activity as it is not directed at the success or failure of a political party, rather the survival of our students and children who are future voters and member of all political parties. The leadership in Washington is terrible, and frankly, this kind of leadership on the local and state level. Okay, so don't do anything, the board members. Don't do anything. Don't outlaw. Don't provide more security. Don't do anything. And then, you know, if something happens, just say, listen, we wanted to do something. We believed we should do X, Y, and Z, but we can't get involved with politics. And then go home and look in the mirror as it cracks. It's awful. As I close it out, I got one more story for you. And let me know if you're liking what I'm selling here. If you like the stories, I'm trying to mix it up here. We got taking on the Democrats. We got corrupt banks, corrupt politicians. We got Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, little local gun stories. I try to mix it up so it's not all one thing, all another thing. A lot of the reporting I'm going to be doing as we launch this new network, hopefully this summer, is going to be based on state and local levels. I love your interviews on regular people. Well, go watch the interviews I did. I interviewed two really impressive young women who are fighting the opioid epidemic, specifically in Indiana. That is up on youtube.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Part 1 of my interview with Thomas Frank, an environmental activist in East Chicago, Indiana, is up. I update you on what's going on in East Chicago, which is a crisis. Make no mistake about it. I just did an interview today with a fellow independent journalist on Bears Ears in Utah, which is a public monument sacred to Native Americans that the Trump administration has shrunk by 85%, and it is getting zero coverage. Don't jinx me. I don't have a purple screen yet. And I think YouTube, by the way, is suppressing my content because I have a lot less views this week than I did in recent weeks. So we'll see. Now, one last story. I'm going to keep Puerto Rico in the news because unlike the corporate media, I want to remind you Puerto Rico is part of the United States. And the lies they're telling that 75% of electricity is back is BS. Just based on the emails I'm getting from citizens in Puerto Rico. And if you have a story idea or a tip, email me at emailjordan. That's emailjordan at protonmail.com. That's emailjordan at protonmail.com. So, Puerto Rico credit unions want a solar-powered recovery. A solar-powered recovery. More than 6 months since Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, tens of thousands of people still have no electricity. And it's more than tens of thousands. Maria Garcia Carrion isn't one of them. She can still run her washing machine, refrigerator, computer, and lights. It's all thanks to the self-contained solar power kit installed on her home, which sits at the far edge of Caguas. I probably mispronounced it. Caguas. That's C-A-G-U-A-S. The third largest city on the island. Quote, "We don't have many trees anymore, so we're maximizing our energy production," Garcia Carrion says, with a lemons to lemonade perspective. Before installing the solar power kit, Garcia Carrion said that the 23 cents per kilowatt hour the local power company charged would add up to a big bill at the end of each month. Since the hurricane, she and her husband have been spending roughly $400 per month to keep a gas-run generator operating for 2 hours in the morning and evening. So 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, they're being charged $400 a month. The solar power kit has eliminated the need to run the generator. The kit has even inspired discussions about how to completely change the way all of Puerto Rico generates its power. Quote, "Where I'm living," says Garcia Carrion, "people are talking about developing community solar networks so that people who live near others could take advantage of a community network." The solar power kits cost roughly $9,000, a substantial outlay, though in Garcia Carrion's case, it was purchased as a demonstration project through the University of New Hampshire's Carsey Center for Impact Finance. That's the Carsey Center for Impact Finance. Other residents will need to finance their own, but the center has been working with Jesus Obrero Cooperative de Ahorro y Crédito, and I'll put the links for all this in the description box, to finance the solar power kits for other families. Jesus Obrero is part of Puerto Rican's own network of credit unions called Cooperativa System. The cooperativas are insured and regulated by the Puerto Rican government. The project illustrates the way community financial institutions are helping Puerto Rico fully back online and keep it there. While the hurricane heightened the urgency of the program, Jesus Obrero has been providing loans for solar power kits for 6 years, says Executive Director Arielo Arroyo. The group serves roughly 10,000 people between the cities of San Juan, Guaynabo, and Bayamón. Guaynabo and Bayamón have populations of roughly 240,000 and 100,000, respectively. There is still a lot of education and outreach needed, which is why the Carsey Center provided Garcia Carrion her solar power kit, as well as support to Jesus Obrero for an engineer to do outreach and education work to other families. Quote, "Guaynabo, which is part of the municipality of San Juan, still has some people without electricity," Arroyo says. In order to be able to offer financing to more people for solar power kits, Jesus Obrero is pursuing certification for the Department of Treasury, as a community development financial institution. I know, my pronunciation isn't so strong. For certification, the department requires institutions to target at least 60% of their lending or overall business to low-income communities and population that have traditionally been marginalized from mainstream financial institutions. CDFI certification means that credit unions, including cooperativas, can access low-interest financing from government and philanthropy to support community economic development and can act as conduits for larger banks to meet their obligations under the Community Reinvestment Act. So, as you can see, although it's very, very expensive, when solar power kits were put in there, they reduced the cost for this resident by at least $400 per month. But what are we focused on? Privatization in Puerto Rico. the governor is basically trying to privatize the whole island. And as Naomi Klein reported in Shock Doctrine, most of these natural disasters, which are not natural because they're man-made from climate change, corporations, plutocrats go in, privatize, and make off like bandits as the people continue to suffer. So, credit unions or cooperatives working together to deliver more solar is very, very important. You're not going to see it in the corporate media, though. So I'll post this information in the description box. If you're watching in Puerto Rico, look into it. Solar could save you a lot of money, as well as, obviously, the planet. So, thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure. Share this video. Make sure your notifications are on for my videos. I think YouTube is doing some funny stuff, and the algorithm is making it where you have no idea when I post a video, or it doesn't pop up in your feed. So unfortunately, you're going to have to be proactive. Bookmark the YouTube page. Press the bell so you get notifications. Check. I posted a few videos today. Got more to go. Twitter is also suppressing me. So if you follow me at Jordan Chariton, press notifications for my tweets also. It's unfortunate that we have to do this, where these social platforms are basically social for establishment people. Everybody else is getting censored. And if you don't know, I beg of you, go to my website. That's jordanchariton.com, jordanchariton.com. I'm going to be putting more of my videos up there, but I really, really ask you right now, when you get off of this, go to the website, put in your email, because we're not going to surveil you. We're not going to do any funny stuff. What we are going to do is send you maybe 1 or 2 emails a week. Nothing crazy, not every day. So you get information directly from us. And as we launch this new company, my business partner Jen is working feverishly for that. As we launch this new company, we have your information directly. We don't got to rely on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on any of those. We have your email directly, so we could cut out all those middlemen that frankly are censoring people like me and get straight to you. So let's grow that email list, jordanchariton.com. And as always, my Patreon for my book, Chapter 5 is now out. Patreon.com/JordanChariton. Appreciate everyone that's subscribing. We just passed 400 patrons. I'd love to get it up to 500 and beyond. Have a great day.